Welcome to the channel. If you've been watching, you've already seen us feel our way through this thing without any instructions. But if you haven't been watching, we're installing the Bonney Fab intercooler mount in the core support of our 86 K30. And it's been a little bit of a process, I'm not gonna lie. But we decided we were gonna make a short video with a condensed version of basically how we would do it step by step if we were gonna do it again. And we weren't having to kind of feel our way through it, like I said. So what we did, first of all, I think was the right move. This is what it looked like. And we basically started by cutting this rectangle out from just outside of these braces and along the bottom. It's basically flat down here and up here now. So once you get that out of the way.
And on a side note, when you cut that top, be careful with the depth of whatever you're using to cut, if you're using a cutoff wheel or whatever, because if you get too close, if you get too close up here, you'll cut right through into the front.
That's a good point. It's because of one of these step downs, you're cutting right up.
There it is right there. We'll show you.
Yeah, right here.
Show you where we almost got it.
Yeah, so they're kind of overlapping. If you're getting really close to the corner, and you'll see it, you'll be right up against this. So be careful with that. Don't cut all the way through up here.
Yep.
Just take it slow. You can probably could be said for the whole process. Just take your time, think everything through.
Yeah, and I mean that you're talking about real thin sheet metal, so you can give yourself a little extra room there, and then come back with a a sanding disc on a grinder or whatever, and take it down real quick. It doesn't take but a second. So
yeah,
definitely want to err on the side of caution.
Yeah, so that's going to be step one. There's nothing to worry about, and the bottom there's really nothing to worry about. It's just on top, and you can see how these cuts kind of fade out. It's because we were worried about getting into it in that corner because it's hard to get that wheel in there. But this is the cut where you need to be careful. And like he said, you can move it down 1/4 of an inch and you're pretty much in the clear, and then just sand it off or grind it off later. But once you get this, mainly these braces out of the way, you can slide this in here and it'll set down on top of these, all these contours. Then it's a lot closer. You can get in here with a sharp soapstone and make a nice fine line to cut. So we used a little pneumatic saw to cut ours. It worked real good. Let's cut that curve in it.
Yeah, and you don't have to have soapstone either. If you got a fine tip Sharpie or something, it'll work fine too.
Yeah. Yeah, so then that'd be the next step, is to cut this to where this thing will actually slide in here. And once this is cut, you can clean up these edges, top and bottom. And then it'll slide right in there. And then our intercooler is the short version. It's 15 7/8. The tall one's 16 3/4. So if you have the short intercooler, you're going to need this. This is what he calls the short intercooler kit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's basically some hood stops, and it gives you some bushings that will weld in here. And this hole is already in this bracket, but you'll have to use a hole saw to drill it into your core support to put that in. And that just comes down on top of the shorter intercooler to keep it from jumping out. So mark that hole, and you can mark all these holes. These holes that are welded up are what he puts there to bolt the radiator mount. That's right here. So that one and this one are for this. We're going to weld these on, we're not going to bolt them. And these are for this. These two and these two, so you need these. And that will bolt right there. And that essentially holds your intercooler in. It's just sandwiched. There's a rubber bumper that goes here, just like this. And they just squish the intercooler. It's held here, 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 and then its foot, just like factory. So you need those 4 inserts. It gives you those. So back to the point, when you set this thing in there, mark that hole, mark these holes. If you want to use bolts, you need to mark those holes. And we went ahead and marked all these. And then we ended up just going and cutting in a square notch in that corner like that. Because our holes, I don't know about yours, but they wound up in this radius. So you're not going to drill that with a drill bit. All you're going to do is break drill bits, maybe your wrist. So we just took a cutoff wheel and cut it, and then grinded out the center to make clearance for these nut certs. Oh, you need to mark these too. So you can pull the frame back out, hole saw this, and hole saw these. One on each side. Then you have to clearance for all of these inserts. Then you can put it back in and weld it in. We didn't do a ton of welding. We were just going off of pictures on Rob Bonney's website. And they have stitch welds all over the place. So I just did what we thought was necessary. And we used these as plug welds since we weren't using bolts. These holes are all plug welds. On his website, they have them all welded. Nothing could bolt in there anyway because your intercooler's sitting right here. So we welded all those up. Just did a few stitch welds around the perimeter, front and back. A few stitch welds here. Didn't weld it solid. We'll come back and put seam sealer in there, you know, down the road before we paint it after it's sandblasted. That's pretty much it. Oh, yeah, other than these radiator mounts, he sends these. These are more of the same bushing. This is just like the ones that get welded in here if you have the short intercooler, and they are going to go right here. And that mounts your radiator, your upper radiator mounts will go there. And another thing is this bottom piece. This is how they do it. They cut it off right inside of this third little nut that's tacked on for the fender well. We kind of dodged it for a while. We didn't want to do it because we felt like it left this fender well a little unsupported, which it kind of does, but you almost have to get to these 2 bolts, because that bracket for the radiator is sitting right over the top of them. So we went ahead and did it, cut it straight in just inside of that nut, right along this edge of this pinch weld. The top piece ended here already. The bottom piece is what carried on. So we cut right along the edge of that. Same thing on this side, just inside of this nut. We didn't measure it or anything, just kind of eyeballed it. It's not critical. It's just giving you access to these bolts. So it doesn't really matter when you do this. You can do it whenever it's convenient. You know, if you're already cutting something else, you just go ahead and cut this out too. All right, guys, so as you can see, we got the front end of the truck put all back together, and this is pretty much done now. So we can show you exactly what we did. If you wanted to see it done step by step, you'll have to go watch the build video. But on these radiator mounts, we had them full height and the hood was closing on top of the cap. It wasn't stopping the hood from closing, but it was closing on it. So we cut those down 1/2 inch and we just notched them to go around the core support. This is where your fender wells bolt, and you can see we basically took half of it off. We cut it down to 1/2 inch. And another thing that's noteworthy is we're using the 1st gen fan hub. And in my opinion, this whole thing could have and maybe should have been shifted to the passenger side at least 3/4 of an inch. Because our fan is not perfectly centered in the fan shroud. You know, we cheated the radiator over as far as we could, but it fits the intercooler. You know, they're made to nest into each other. So we brought this to basically as tight as we were comfortable with it being, and lowered it down that 1/2 inch. So this isn't supposed to be that tight. It's got more room on the other side, but we cheated the radiator over to get the fan more centered in the shroud. So if you're using a 2nd gen fan hub, we can only assume that this isn't going to be an issue, and you should keep your Rob Bonney Fab brace centered. But if you are using a 1st gen fan hub, I suggest that when you cut this hole, you scoot it over 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so that takes care of the radiator. When it comes to the condenser, it's relatively straightforward. You know, we did get an email copy of his instructions. I don't know if we mentioned that before, but this goes in pretty much the way it's supposed to. Just bolt these on here first. There's enough play in all these holes, you know, it's not real critical. Just bolt these on first, then put it in here and put these bolts in. And then you're going to have to get under here. And we just put a mark at the bottom of these tubes on the end of the condenser where the center of that tube is. And then on the center of the Rob Bonney Fab part, and then where those two lines intersect, you're going to drill a hole and put one of those rubber bumpers in there. And on ours, it was landing where this core support was doubled up. It was originally up here like this. So we cut that off because the bumper wasn't thick enough to keep this tube off of this. So we had to get rid of it. So you have one of those on each side. And that pretty much takes care of the condenser. This is the Vintage Air Monster condenser. Yeah, that's what they call it. That's what Rob Bonney suggests. So that's what we used. And, you know, for the most part, it works fine. Now this is the last piece in his instructions, and it was the last piece for us. And it hits this grill tab. Your grill mounts right here. So you can see where we notched it. Like, there's no way that was going to work, ever. Now, you don't have a whole lot of meat left here, but, you know, we cut it and then we pulled on it, you know, and it's still plenty strong. It's not going anywhere, but that's an issue. We contemplated just rebuilding it from scratch, but we didn't. We went this route, and I think it's fine, but you are going to have to notch that. I don't see any other way around it. We thought we were doing something wrong, but
Yeah, and there's no reference to valance, clearance or anything like that. It makes it sound like it should go right in.
mm-hmm.
So, we're not sure where the disconnect is here between what they make it sound like it should work and how this came out. But yeah, obviously doesn't fit like we thought it would.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the deal is with that, but we just notched ours. It's still plenty stout. We were a little bit worried about it because it has all these reliefs cut in it for that brake, but it seems fine. The last step in this process is this hook. Normally it's turned around the other way. This hook faces forward and it bolts right here. So the instructions say to turn it around, re-drill the holes and bolt it. You'll have to use nuts. So that's what we did. And the first time we put it basically exactly where it was based on this as a center line, and we re-drilled the holes. But when we closed the hood, it landed right here. Wasn't going in. So we had to move the holes over 7/8 of an inch from that location, which looks like exactly 2 inches from the factory hole is what it's moved over. So that's where we wound up sideways to get centered in this hole. Now, these square bodies, they're not all perfect, so that measurement could change a little bit. But from our experience, you can't just turn it around and put it right back where it was and re-drill those holes. And then the hook it's facing forward, but it was just clearing this front lip. So we had to move it forward a 1/2 inch where it will hook on this, just like it used to on the back. So it's moved this way 2 inches, and it's moved forward a 1/2 inch, so it'll hook. Other than that, pretty straightforward, just like he says. You know, the results may vary. You might want to just, before you drill those holes, close it, check it, see if you can get an idea where exactly it's going to hit on this hole. You know, but I'm fairly confident that it's not going to be just spin it around and put this hook right back where it was. So that's that. That's the last piece of this whole Bonney Fab intercooler puzzle. And hopefully this helps somebody out, and hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We do a monthly giveaway. If you're new to the channel, all you got to do to get entered is be a subscriber. Go down in the comments, type subscribed, and you'll be entered. It's a tool giveaway every month. So we appreciate y'all watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.